Russia's invasion of Ukraine has proven to be a major strategic failure for Putin, and it has severely weakened Russia's influence, thus leaving it more isolated than ever. Instead of consolidating power, Moscow is seeing key allies like Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Armenia drift away, while NATO has strengthened and expanded its influence. These shifts are not just eroding Russia's standing globally, but also weakening the effectiveness and the unity of its own military alliance, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO. Now, sensing that Russia is far weaker than expected, several CSTO members have begun exploring alternatives to Russia's leadership. Starting off with Armenia. Armenia traditionally was reliant on Russia for military support. However, it has begun seeking alternatives after Moscow's lack of assistance during the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and recent attacks by Azerbaijan. In 2023, Armenia held joint military exercises with the United States and strengthened defensive ties with Europe by securing defense agreements with France, indicating a growing dissatisfaction with Russia and the CSTO. Kazakhstan is another example. They were once a reliable ally of Russia, but has distanced themselves by refusing to recognize the independence of Russian-occupied territories in Ukraine. Kazakhstan was an initial developer of the US-led initiative launched earlier this year known as the B5+1 process, under which Central Asian nations have reduced trade barriers and attract higher levels of Western investment. This year, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan all signed on to the US plan, as Russia formally issued warnings to those nations for doing so. Now, speaking of Tajikistan, they are also traditionally reliant on Russia for security, but are increasingly turning to China due to concerns about instability in neighboring Afghanistan. In July of 2024, both countries signed a joint statement announcing the establishment of the China-Tajikistan Comprehensive Strategic Cooperative Partnership. China has provided military infrastructure, border outposts, and training after Tajikistan voiced frustration at Russia's equipment commitments falling short. So they are reducing their dependence on Russia and diversifying their security partnerships. Now, the most concerning one for Russia would probably be Belarus. They are Russia's closest ally, but even they are beginning to signal a desire for alternatives. Throughout late 2023 and 2024, President Lukashenko quietly reached out to the European Union in an effort to ease sanctions on fertilizer for his country and rebuild regional relations. Although Belarus remains closely aligned with Russia, these moves suggest that Lukashenko is exploring ways to reduce his country's reliance on Russia for necessary goods and trade. Now, these developments reveal significant cracks in the CSTO and come at a time when NATO is growing stronger. In response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, NATO expanded, with Finland and Sweden joining the alliance. Additionally, NATO has reinforced its military presence in the Baltic states, as well as Poland. So what was intended to be a show of Russian strength through the rapid taking of Ukraine has instead backfired. Russia's key allies are drifting away, NATO is expanding, Russia's economy is struggling, you'll see that in my next video, and the CSTO is showing signs of internal division. Instead of weakening NATO, Russia's aggression has strengthened and united the alliance, while Moscow's own military bloc is fraying. So Putin recognizes that this has placed him further away from returning Russia to its former glory as the Soviet Union and securing his legacy. Instead, Russia now finds itself more isolated and less influential on the global stage than it was before. Unfortunately, if tradition holds, it is when Russia is at its lowest that it begins to lash out even at its allies. So that begs the question, if those CSTO countries I just mentioned continue to drift away, do they become the next Ukraine or Georgia? Can Russia afford to watch the CSTO crumble away as more nations lean towards Western influence? Russia will not allow that to happen, and they might actually resort to force. However, at this point, Russia may not have the means to do so, even if they have to make a choice, because those dominoes may have already started to fall.